how your friendship with him started.
I met Nate, my memory's terrible, probably 2008, 2009 at a PWP show. And I remember watching him work and was really impressed with what he did. And, went up, got to talk to him for like 3 minutes, bought a Dangerous J t-shirt. And he and I had both worked for gamers at different times in our lives and both agreed that job sucked. But honestly, just added him on Facebook and kind of went back and forth every so often, would see him before shows, tried my hand at the training thing at a Jerry Lynn seminar that Jerry Lynn didn't show up on time for. So got to roll around with Nate, Mark Sterling, Eric Cannon, Showtime Darian Sanders a little bit. So it was first real push into this world. I remember getting the wind knocked out of me, having to go breathe for a little bit, and when I came back, they just kind of just like, "You going back?" And I was like, yeah, I am. So went back in and finished up. It was surreal, Wrestling was something I always liked as a kid, as a preteen and early teens, but it was never something that I felt myself wanting to pursue, as it were. But my little brother was a huge fan. So I went into it with the mentality of like, hey, if I do this training, if I learn, maybe it'll encourage him to do it and he can live his dream. So I kept looking for opportunities to go back and kept going to PWP shows, and eventually, I never know why, but Nate and I were talking one day and he told me about a promotion he'd already run a few shows for but was trying to take more seriously, MAGNUM Pro. And he asked me if I wanted to be a part of it, which I don't know what he saw, but I remember talking with him about the first show, him, Dave Clark, myself. I remember using Plenty of Fish as a way to sell tickets by going out and going on dates and selling a ticket at the end of it. They didn't come to the show, but the door was good. And I remember him presenting us all with these on the first or second show. I happen to have two of these because when I was about 21 or so, probably the first class of the MAGNUM Pro Dojo, as we called it, aka Nate's Garage, was myself, Jeff O'Shea, Pete Sanctions, Malachi Matthews when he could show up, this dude Nick, and Sarah, and I think there was someone else, but I don't really remember. Like I said, my memory's not quite there. And it was Strife teaching us, rolling around in his hot-ass garage, And I hadn't been a very physically fit person. I was still skinny, but I was skinny fat. My athletic bones all broke when I got hit by a car when I was 16. So I'd been rusty, but Nate was very strict about the fundamentals. He was trying to break everyone in and 4 out of the 6, 7 of us were living in an apartment together, so we couldn't really escape our fellow students. So after the training, it was just we'd go back to Russell apartment for tape study or just talk about things. Jeff was making show flyers at that point. And it just really brought a bunch of us together in such a unique way that I can't speak for military training or anything like that. That's never been my thing. But like we were kind of just enlisted together. We were bonded in a way. And wrestling being what it is, some of those relationships don't last. But I'm still close with most of those people, and I remember taking bumps in the summer, and this is before like Nate was gonna fuck off to Germany for a few months and wrestle at WXW. I was so fucking proud of him, but we were taking bumps, and I had this thing where I would bump, I'd slap the mat, and I'd slide on my shoulders and get back up to my feet and feed for the next one, and just on repeat. And Dave Clark kind of talks to Strife and says, Bach there has an interesting way of bumping, don't you think? And Nate just says, yeah, it's almost like you can tell who his trainer is. I don't know why that kind of struck a nerve with me, I never wrestled a match. I did a costume battle royal as Green Man, and I couldn't see shit, but I never got to wrestle a match. But the fact that he put his name on me at all kind of means the world to me. And that's kind of who he was with him and I, We were as close as perfect strangers can be, I guess. I loved him, I revered him, I admired him. He helped me grow and become a different person. But it was never like, Jeff was very firm on if I could get this. He said, yeah, I could see you becoming the Darren Corbin to his Eric Cannon, as it were. So wherever he went, I went, and that we'd always look out for each other. And I kind of regret that that never happened. But he did always give me opportunities when I had to get this fucking thing replaced. I went away for a while, and then a couple years down the line, just by happenstance, ran into Nate at Legend Comics. Told me they were running the Armory now. I knew where the Armory was, and said I should try and make it out to a show. And I did that. I took my at the time girlfriend, now fiance, love you, Babu. Took her and her parents to a Magnum show. It had just grown so much after that first year that I got to spend with them, and I was really happy about it. And I started to get that itch that can either be pro wrestling or chlamydia. You're never quite certain. Sometimes both. But I got the itch, and I messaged Nate on Facebook, and it's just like, hey man, great show. You fucking killed it. I didn't have to say anything past that. He's like, yeah, we're actually doing this gimmick with Nautilus and Anderson. We need a lawyer. Would that be something you'd be interested in? I was, yeah, 100%. Just like that. I back in for another couple years. Met even more incredible people. Got to make more friendships and brotherhoods and learn more from a man that I knew I would never be finished learning from. Because that's who he was. He was always learning himself. Like, you could say a lot of things about Jaysin Strife, but he was never complacent. He was never, it was never good enough for him. He was always going to get better, which is ridiculous when you consider that he was the best, like already. Jaysin Strife is a lot of your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler, He was my favorite wrestler. I'd like to think he was my friend.
There's before we get into that last one, if there's like one, Magnum is definitely like family, and he considered you part of that family for a long time. Like how, just in a few words, explain like how much that family, that brotherhood, that meant to you, that he welcomed you into that family.
I was always welcome. I was always welcome back. Sometimes the faces changed. There were different names, but it always felt like home. And it meant the world to me that I even got to be involved. That I had to see people like Donnie Pepper Cricket, Jaysin Strife. That I got to see up-and-comers like Tim Boston and work with them ever so closely. And I was always finding ways to try and make myself valuable to Magnum, There were a lot of things I wanted to do that didn't get done, but I was always just so happy to be adding value to the product. If I felt like I wasn't adding a value to the product, then I knew, hey, they don't need you right now. It's okay to take a step back. So I would, especially when things got a little rough for me, but I always knew that, hey, I'm sure he'll have you back if you want to go. I'm sure he'd love to have you. That's just who he is. I was mulling it over every so often. Things are busy for me, but kind of like Nate, just the ideas don't stop. I've got ideas on ideas on ideas of stuff that I'd love to bring, and I don't care if I use it or someone else uses it. Like, I see shit I just said on Facebook all over the place, shit. I remember sharing shit. Magnum Militia. Pretty sure that's still in use today. I think I told Drago to be the Heartland Heartthrob. Looks like Convict is doing pretty well with that right now. I'm just so glad that I got to have any involvement at all. That I got to spend those years with a family that is incredibly close to me. Even if I can be a bit of a prick. I think I get that from him too.
So to kind of wrap it all up,
yeah.
A question: if there was one last thing that you could have said to him, what would it have been?
Hey, Bubba. Boss. All the love and respect in the world for you.